Hey family, happy Wednesday, happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you all are doing well. I am reporting to you live from the Workhorse HQ in Edmonds, Washington. Look, I wanted to have a real quick convo with you all. The weather is too nice to just stay inside. And so I did want to at least commit to having this conversation. So earlier this morning, I posted about how when you make the choice to start prioritizing your mental health, you will cause a disruption in the lives of people, right? And people around you, whatever the case might be, right? And I really took this from what we're seeing right now with tennis megastar Naomi Osaka, right? And so as she has pulled out of the next tournament and been fined, she talked about, hey, like, I need to take care of myself more. I need to manage my mental health right now, right? And so I wanted to have a conversation around this because I think that when we talk about advocacy for mental health and wanting to be mental health advocates and all of this rah-rah about taking care of people and putting others first, what I've noticed is that advocacy is not just the talk aspect. It's literally opportunities and moments like this where we are presented with somebody who might be struggling or going through with mental health issues or whatever the case might be, right? And so one of the big things that I covered in the 31 Days of Power was this concept that we all have a mental health. I coupled that with the idea that we need to be proactive rather than reactive. A lot of times we react. A lot of times it's kind of like, oh man, they took their lives. I wish I would have known better. Oh man, one of my close people did X, Y, and Z. I wish I could have done more ahead of time. I wish I would have known. And as much as we wish that we would have known and done, if we can be completely honest, for a lot of us that say that, what we're finding out is that even with us having a knowledge of somebody's struggle, we don't always act. Right? When we do have a knowledge of somebody's struggle and what they're going through, when they do open up in a situation like what you're seeing with Naomi Osaka, for example, right? A lot of the world is upset and frustrated. The tennis world is mad because they'd rather be entertained by her rather than seeing her in a good mental headspace with whatever it might be that she's going through. And I think that this is really good from the standpoint of the fact that we are having a lot of celebrity and millionaire athletes opening up about this, right? In day either 16 or 17 in the book, I talked about the mental health of athletes, and I think that this is so important. One of the old adages that we would always hear when we talk about helping people with problems is that you can't throw money at a problem. Let's take that same thought process and gear it towards people who are, yes, they're entertainers making a lot of money, but at the end of the day, they're still humans that go through, that feel and that struggle the exact same way that you do, right? And taking that same notion to say, hey, we can't just expect them to be this because they're making a lot of money. Money is not going to help them. Now listen, money cannot buy happiness. Maybe it can rent it, cool. But at the end of the day, that rent gonna run out, right? You can only rent it for so long before you either gotta return it or you gotta come face to face with whatever it is you're feeling or dealing with, right? And so I just need for us to make sure that in this, when we have moments where people decide to reprioritize their mental health and they take the opportunity to take care of themselves, we cannot demonize people in these moments, right? Because if we do, what we've now become are hypocrites to the very thing that we say we want to do, which is advocate and help them to be their best selves, to get to a good space to where they can flow and function with whatever it is that they've dealt with that has put them in this position mentally and emotionally. And I just want to make sure that we are being mindful of this. So here's the reality. Disruption is going to happen when we open up about our mental health and say, hey, I need to take a step back. And it's usually going to happen from individuals that we're either close to we're close to, people that we work with. Obviously, when you look at what's happening with folks like Naomi Osaka or some of our NBA and NFL players, it might come through the form of sponsorships and folks that you're doing business with. But at the end of the day, it's a system that will be disrupted. It's a normalcy for some that will be disrupted for whatever reason. Maybe they're not used to you prioritizing yourself. Maybe they're used to having you at the drop of a dime all the time. Thank you to everybody that's coming in right now. Whatever the case might be, when you decide to open up about your mental health, there will be a disruption. So how do we deal with this? I think two things that we want to focus on. If you are the individual that is opening up about your mental health, and then you get the response from somebody and they are literally showing that their life is being disrupted by what you have opened up and shared with them, I want to encourage you all to not take offense and start to lose yourself in the process by giving them the same energy that they're giving you, right? By going off, by allowing yourself to be pulled down into a deeper, darker hole, by going back and forth and arguing with them, keeping beef and smoke going. Like, no, I want to encourage you in this idea that if you open up about your mental health and the people around you, whether they are close friends or family or just associates that you see in passing, if they are displaying disruption through frustration, through anger, through whatever the case might be, please do not take in what they're putting out. You have a choice in that. And I want to make sure that we're very clear. We've got to be very careful not to allow what they put out and portray in that moment to become a part of us, because all that's going to do is add into what we're already feeling mentally and emotionally, the pain, the drainage, right? All of these thoughts, fears, the depression. It's going to continue to just cause that thing to get bigger and bigger, and you don't need that. So what do you do in those moments? Hey, when people show themselves to you in the time where you choose to reprioritize your mental health, and in their response, it says, hey, I don't have your best interest at heart, it is okay for you to cut the cord. And here's the beautiful part. It doesn't have to be done in an ugly way. You can literally remove yourself from a situation if you feel comfortable enough with having a conversation with them to let them know, hey, this is not helping me right now. The way that you've responded in this is not just what I was not expecting. It's not beneficial, and it kind of shows how you look at this compared to the needs that I'm expressing. It ain't got to be done in a malicious fashion to where you lose friendships or where it's got to be like beef and drama, but simply to say, I'm taking myself out of the equation for my mental sanity and for my own boundaries. That way I can focus here. Because if I don't, and you continue to respond like this, you're now going to couple in and become a part of the issues that I'm currently dealing with, right? So it doesn't have to be done in a bogus fashion. It doesn't have to be done in a malicious way. The next thing that I want to give you all with this is I want to encourage you as the individual who maybe you are the one on the receiving end. Yes, absolutely. Grief to glory, right? We gotta have the transparency there. If you are the person on the receiving end of somebody who's telling you that they have to reprioritize their mental health, and it might put you in a position to where, this is going to change the dynamic of how we normally do us, or maybe you got to look at yourself and say, in the response that I had, why did I respond like this? If they're expressing to me about their mental health and what they're struggling with and what they're going through, and I respond out of anger because I'm noticing that things are going to change, or I'm responding in a very out of character type of fashion, we've got to look at ourselves and ask why that is. Why, in a moment where somebody is being transparent and honest with me, am I having this response that might be leading to more hurt? I can't be too loud because I'm not in my normal recording studio spot. But why am I responding in a way that's going to lead to more pain rather than actually actively listening and trying to hear said person's heart, right? So we got to be real careful with this. And then I think too, look, if we can be honest, sometimes, look, I always talk about the heart checks, right? We got to gut check this thing out. And for some of us, when people tell us that they're reprioritizing their mental health and it changes the trajectory of our relationship and we feel some kind of way or we get mad, we got to start questioning ourselves around selfish intent, selfish motives, right? Maybe you find out that you, to a degree in that relationship, were utilizing that person. So we'll use like Naomi Osaka for an example, right? Fans are upset about her doing this because they want to see her come out and dominate. But the reality is that at the end of the day, you're not caring about her. You care about what she brings to the table for your enjoyment and pleasure, whether she's struggling or not, and you don't care, right? And it's the same way within these relationships. So we've got to start checking ourselves to say, man, like, that's trash of me as a human to have this kind of approach to somebody when they're letting me know how vulnerable it is. But in the same breath, I'm saying I want to be a mental health advocate, and I'm saying we got to look out for each other, and we got to be about community, and we got to help people. But then this is how I respond when I actually have the opportunity to be that or to do that. And so real simple message today. Disruption, in my opinion, is inevitable in moments, no matter on what scale, that you decide to open up about your mental health and have to reprioritize. Whether it's on your job, whether it's with your family and friends, in your relationship, it's a part of the system because it is unusual to people. But even though it's unusual, it does not have to be ugly. We can work together. We can figure this thing out. We can listen to people in these moments and be intentional about, hey, I don't have all the answers. And even though this feels weird and it's changing the dynamic from what I'm used to with you, let me put myself and my feelings to the side so that I can truly hear you to make sure that I'm helping you. Because here's the reality. You don't want to end up on thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate you, sis. Thank you. You don't want to end up on the side of the spectrum to where you had the opportunity early on, but you kept using the person. And every time they opened up about their mental and their emotional, and every time they opened up about needing to reprioritize, your narcissistic ways guilt trip them back into, all right, fine, I'll push it out a little longer. I'll push it out a little longer. And what happens when a little longer is no longer there? What happens when a little longer ends in somebody's life being taken? Because once again, I talked about this in the book, the chapter about high functioning depression that leads to suicide, right? For many people who continue to go and entertain and make sure that everybody else is good and not really able to take care of themselves, when they have a cry for help, when they put out a plea, this is the response that they get. And then you're going to be sitting there at the very end thinking like, man, I wish I could have done something different. And truth be told, you could have, but you missed the opportunity. If we are going to become better mental health advocates, we've got to understand that the opportunity is not going to look like what we think it's going to look like. Perfect example. I remember Bruce Almighty, the second one, right? Jim Carrey was having a conversation. No, it was the first one, I think. Jim Carrey was having a conversation with Morgan Freeman, right? And, Morgan Freeman was playing God in the movie. And Morgan Freeman had this spiel where he talked about when people pray and ask for love, you don't have magic fairy dust sent down that hits your body and puts you in this overwhelming feeling of love. When people pray for love, he said that you have these moments where you get opportunities to be loved, to practice love, to give love, to experience love. And it's the same way with anything that we say out of our mouths. We want to be a help in with community, with people, with mental health, with homelessness, with every issue that we see around our world, human sex trafficking. All of it is an opportunity. And a lot of times when the opportunity aspect, it meets us, we miss it. We miss it because it doesn't look like what we expected, not realizing that this is it. This is the moment. So please, if we take nothing else from what we've seen with Naomi Osaka and the situation, look, if folks open up to you and they tell you that they're struggling and going through, take advantage of that opportunity to walk alongside with them in a deeper way and not respond out of your selfish intent or selfish motives to want to either be entertained or to continue to manipulate them and utilize them in the way that you see fit. Because you're trash. We're just going to put it out there. It's trash. Right? And we cannot do that any further. That's my message for y'all today, man. Look, this is an everyday mental health thing. Henceforth, the subtitle of this book, Everyday Mental Health, right? It's not just the 31 days. It is 365. I love y'all, and I want to see you win in all you do. Thank you so much for taking time with me today. You're not losing in life. You're not failing. You're simply between the dream.